Welcome to Happy Hour Whiskey Business Edition, Volume 2. Today, we're just going to do a broad overview and speak about bourbon, and I'm going to show you a brand that I really have been enjoying lately. We'll talk about a bunch of them as well. Bourbon, made in Kentucky, the United States of America. Corn-based, 51% or more corn, distilled in copper or copper-lined distilleries. It's a mash. Fermented mash, which is then aged in barrels, and the age of the whiskey is the amount of time that it's spent in the barrels, as we went over. So I'm not going to go into that again. If you watch the last episode, you want some details, go into the last episode. That one's a bit of a tome, I tell you. So let's talk about bourbon. We're just going to have a broad conversation about bourbon, brands of bourbon. I'm going to start in one place and end up in another. And the place that I end up is going to be the nice sipping whiskey that I want you to know about that you may not know about. You also may know about it. If you're a whiskey expert, you probably know all this stuff. Maybe you're just watching it to watch me see if I fail. And if that's the case, man, think about your life. Why are you doing it? Anyway, so we'll start with, Jim Beam. Arguably, or I guess, well, Jim Beam would be bourbon. Coca-Cola, it's Jim Beam. You know Jim Beam. You've known Jim Beam. Your dad knows Jim Beam. Your grandpa knows Jim Beam. Is it a good bourbon? Totally holds its own. Has been doing so for a zillion years. So it's Jim Beam. I don't need to speak to that. We've probably had that. Moving around to other bourbons, Elijah Craig. Elijah Craig is named after one of the supposed here, let me tip that, it's a little shiny. The founder of bourbon, or one of, I don't know. But this is a bourbon that I kind of just grabbed off the shelf. I'd never had it before. It's barrel proofed Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey, 59% alcohol per volume, which means cool it. But this is a nice sipper. It's got lots of caramel notes. Very sweet, but it's also very sharp. I don't like a rye whiskey. That's one of the reasons I like it, because of its crispness. Four Roses is a bourbon that, for me, I would see it and I'm like, oh, that's Grandpappy's whiskey. And I was like way off. Like, Four Roses bourbon is actually very good. I would say even like maybe a notch up from Jim Beam. Has some complexities to it. It's not overly sweet, but then they also make a couple of other versions. This is the small batch, highly recommended, not like an insane price point. And they also have a single barrel version, which I just had for the first time the other day, and it was just terrific. Again, has bourbon sweetness, complex notes, yes, more so than this, and this more so than the Four Roses kind of standard, right? We're going to talk about Buffalo Trace for a second. This is, I don't know where you're watching from, but this stuff flies off the shelves here in Portland, Maine. My goodness. If you can find a bottle, in fact, I might go outside and sell this bottle for $500. Just kidding, I won't do that. That would be very illegal. And also, it books at like $26.99, I think. And the reason it's so popular is because it's so delicious and they do such a good job. Probably, aside from some of the OG bourbons, which I'm going to get into in the next thing, we're going to break this down. And this is just me talking about my favorite bourbons, right? And so I pulled these bottles. If you can get your hands on a bottle of Buffalo Trace, if you are a Jim Beam drinker, right? You're gonna like this. It's gonna check off a lot of the same boxes. Are you gonna spend a little bit more? Sure. Are you gonna go broke doing so? Absolutely not. Just like with the Four Roses. Four Roses entry level, very affordable. Get up the small batch, kick it up. Worth it? I think so, but I'm also not going to drink, I'm not doing volume drinking, so it all evens out in the wash. And if you want to get into the single barrel, yeah, very good and worth that kind of quiet contemplation at the end of the day. So Buffalo Trace I bring up for a reason, because I found out that this whiskey that I had found here at Salvage Barbecue, who's so graciously hosting us, this is the first place I had seen it. And it's the first place I had tasted it. And when I was doing my research on it, turns out it's made by Buffalo Trace. Weller's. They have a few different tiers of Weller's or flavor. I don't know what you'd call it. There's a few different kinds of Weller's. This is the Special Reserve. And let me get that in real close. Yeah, it's got a focus, but catch that color though. So this is a high proof. So it has quite a bite to it. Also means you don't want to like, I don't know about you, but I haven't partaken in shooting whiskey for some time. At my age, I find it disrespectful to myself and the whiskey. So we're only going to be talking about whiskeys that you can sip and enjoy, because that's the point of this whole thing. Normally, I would put it on the rocks a little bit, let it open up a little bit, but like, it also just is amazing tasting, just on its own. And I don't know, I'm not a wine person. You know how people can be like, zhuzh around the glass? Like, I kind of, after I started drinking whiskey, I kind of get it. You just kind of want to enjoy it, enjoy everything about it. I don't know, I think about like all the people who made it. I also think about like, who the hell figured this out? Like, who was like, if you take the rotten barley, you know, fermented, but like, anyway, I just think about the whole process. But I also think about the whole process that gets us from, you know, barley to this bottle of Weller's Reserve. Special Reserve, my bad. So, a sip and some thoughts. Spicy. Spicy because of the high ABV. So you're gonna get that kind of like a little bit of a burn in the throat. But one thing I like about this as well is it does have some inherent sweetness, no doubt, but the notes are soft. It's just a very well-rounded, aside from the sharpness of the high alcohol content, there's really nothing else in this whiskey that you're gonna catch your sweater on. So, if you've not tried Weller's, I mean, you can go online and read there. I could read you their bio. Here, no, I'm not gonna read the bio. I'm not going to read from the bottle. I just want to tell you that this is a whiskey that I enjoy, and maybe you would enjoy as well. So go out and try it. This is what we're going to do in this series, is just encourage you to go out and try a delicious bottle of whiskey that maybe you haven't had before, and you know, take a drive around the old aisle. Try something new. This has been Happy Hour, brought to you by Maine Spirits. You can learn more about this whiskey and many other whiskeys at mainspirits.com. You can download their app for your smartphone, which is a smart move. What to buy, where to buy it, what to do with it once you get it. Or you can follow them on Instagram at main_spirits. But as always, we implore you to drink deliciously and responsibly.